Your phone fits in your pocket, but it holds more information than the entire Library of Congress. It can show you videos, help you talk to friends, and even play incredibly detailed games. But how does this tiny flat rectangle do all of that? How does simple electricity turn into a complicated movie or a game? How does a tiny piece of sand called silicon get smart enough to power our world? And how can electricity even think or remember things? We're going on an amazing journey today to answer these exact questions. We'll discover the secret language behind every computer. Imagine an old-fashioned light switch. It has only two states, on or off. That's it. It's either letting electricity flow or it's blocking it. Computers work with a language built on this exact same idea. Every single piece of information inside your computer, from a giant movie file to the smallest letter you type, is stored as a series of these simple on or off signals we call on A1 and off A0. This is the only language computers truly understand. It's called binary code, a language of just two numbers. Think of it like a secret code where every letter in the alphabet, every number, every picture, every sound is represented by a specific pattern of zeros and ones. For example, the letter A might be 0100001. A single 0 or 1 is called a bit. 8 bits together form a byte, which is like a tiny digital word. Thousands of bytes make kilobytes, millions make megabytes, and billions make gigabytes. When you watch a video, your computer is reading and processing millions of these tiny zeros and ones every second. It's like flipping billions of light switches incredibly fast. But how do these simple on and off signals actually do anything useful? A magic starts with something called a transistor. A transistor is just a super tiny electrical switch. It's so small, you can't see it without a powerful microscope. Imagine a normal light switch on your wall. You push it, and the light turns on or off. A transistor does the same thing, but instead of you pushing it, a tiny electric signal controls it. If there's a small electric current on one part of the transistor, it allows a bigger current to flow through another part, effectively turning itself on. If there's no small current, it stays off. These little switches are built right onto tiny pieces of material. A single fingernail-sized computer chip can hold over 50 billion tiny switches. That's more switches than there are people on Earth, all packed into one small space. Engineers connect these transistors together in specific ways to make what are called logic gates. Think of a logic gate as a tiny decision maker. It takes one or more on or off signals as input and produces one on or off signal as output based on a simple rule. One common type is an AND gate. It has two inputs. It only produces an on output if both of its inputs are on. Imagine two light switches in a room. The light only turns on if switch A is on and switch B is on. If either is off, the light stays off. Another type is an OR gate. It has two inputs too. It produces an on output if switch A is on or switch B is on or if both are on. As long as at least one is on, the light turns on. The NOT gate is even simpler. It takes one input and just reverses it. If the input is on, the output is off. If the input is off, the output is on. It just flips the signal. These tiny logic gates are the building blocks of all computer operations. They allow computers to make basic choices based on the zeros and ones. They're incredibly simple on their own, but put billions of them together, and they can do amazing things. These gates can make simple decisions, but how do they remember anything? To remember information, computers need memory. Memory is just more logic gates wired in a very specific way. These special circuits can hold on to an on or off state, A0 or A1, even after the input signal is removed. It's like flipping a light switch and leaving it in that position. It remembers its state. This kind of memory is called a flip-flop circuit. Computers have billions of these flip-flops, each storing a single bit of information. When you hear about your computer's RAM or random access memory, that's what we're talking about. RAM is a super fast temporary storage area. It's where your computer holds information that it's actively using right now. When you open a game or a web browser, the computer loads parts of that program into RAM. RAM is incredibly fast because it's built right into the main computer chip, using electrical signals that travel almost at the speed of light. But RAM has a big secret. It's forgetful. As soon as you turn off your computer, or if the power goes out, All the information stored in RAM vanishes instantly. It needs constant electricity to remember. That's why you always save your work before shutting down. Losing power is a problem if you want to keep things for later. So, how do computers store things permanently? For information that needs to last even when the power is off, computers use permanent storage. There are a few main types, each working a little differently. One classic type is a hard drive. Inside a hard drive, there are shiny spinning metal platters, a bit like tiny record discs. A read-write head, like the needle on a record player, floats just a hair's width above these platters. This head uses magnetism to change tiny spots on the platters. A spot magnetized in one direction might be a 1, and in another direction, a 0. Hard drives are great for storing huge amounts of data for a long time. However, because they have spinning parts, they can be slower than RAM and can wear out over many years. A newer, faster type of permanent storage is called a solid-state drive, or SSD. Unlike hard drives, SSDs have no moving parts. Instead, they store information by trapping tiny electrical charges in special cells. Each trapped charge represents a 0 or a 1. These electrons stay trapped even when the power is off, so the information is saved permanently. Imagine tiny boxes that can either hold a super small electric charge or not. An SSD is much faster than a traditional hard drive because it can access any piece of information almost instantly without waiting for a spinning disk. Both hard drives and SSDs serve the same purpose: to store your photos, videos, documents, and programs so they don't disappear when you turn off the computer. We have memory to work quickly, and storage to keep things safe. But how does the computer know what to do with it all? The real brain of your computer is something called the Central Processing Unit, or CPU. You can think of the CPU as the master chef for all the computer's tasks. It doesn't actually think in the way humans do. Instead, it follows a very precise recipe. Everything a computer does, from opening a program to moving a character in a game, is broken down into a series of incredibly small, simple instructions. These instructions are like single steps in a cooking recipe. For example, add these two numbers, move this piece of data here, or check if this number is bigger than that one. The CPU constantly repeats a cycle called fetch, decode, execute. First, it fetches an instruction from memory. Then, it decodes what that instruction means. Finally, it executes or carries out that instruction. This cycle happens unbelievably fast. Modern computer processors can handle more than 1 trillion instructions every single second. That's 1 million instructions in the blink of an eye. This speed is measured in gigahertz, or GHz. The 3 GHz processor can complete 3 billion instructions every second. Imagine trying to follow a recipe with that many steps, all at once. Your computer does it without breaking a sweat. The CPU is incredibly powerful, but it only understands these very simple, basic instructions, written in zeros and ones. These instructions are simple. But how do they become complex programs? So, we know computers only understand zeros and ones, and the CPU executes tiny instructions. But you don't type in zeros and ones when you write a school report or play a game. That's where programming languages come in. Humans created special languages, like Python, JavaScript, or C++, that are much easier for us to understand. When a programmer writes code in one of these languages, it's like writing a detailed story or a complex recipe. Then, another special program, called a compiler or interpreter, translates that human-readable code into the zeros and ones that the CPU can understand and execute. It's like having a super-fast translator. This translated set of instructions, all in zeros and ones, is what we call software. Software is just a big, organized collection of instructions for the CPU. Your computer's operating system, like Windows or macOS, is a giant piece of software. It's the manager that organizes everything. It helps the CPU talk to the memory, the storage, and all the parts of the computer. Then, on top of the operating system, you have application software. These are the programs you use every day, like your web browser, video games, or drawing apps. Each of these applications is simply a massive, intricate set of instructions. So how does software appear from nothing? It doesn't. It's carefully crafted by human programmers who write commands in their own language, which then gets converted into the billions of zeros and ones the CPU can follow. These amazing programs all started somewhere even even smaller, let's go all the way back to the beginning. That tiny piece of sand, silicon. Silicon is one of the most common elements on Earth, found everywhere, especially in sand. It's a semiconductor, which means it can be made to either conduct electricity or block it, depending on how it's treated. This is perfect for making those tiny on and off switches. First, silicon is purified to an incredible degree, like cleaning a grain of sand until it's perfectly, scientifically pure. Then it's grown into a giant perfect crystal called an ingot, shaped like a long, smooth cylinder. This cylinder is sliced into very thin, round wafers, looking like shiny gray CDs. On these wafers, engineers use incredibly precise techniques to build the transistors and connect them. They use light, chemicals, and masks to etch microscopic patterns onto the silicon. Imagine drawing tiny, complex cities on something thinner than a sheet of paper. The lines etched onto a computer chip are 1,000 times thinner than a single human hair. They are measured in nanometers, which is 1/1000th of a meter. This intricate process creates billions of those tiny switches and logic gates on a single wafer. Each tiny square cut from the wafer becomes a computer chip, like the one in your phone or computer. So how does raw silicon become smart? It's not magic. It's incredible human ingenuity and precision manufacturing, arranging billions of simple switches in complex patterns, turning simple sand into the beating heart of our digital world. From sand to your screen, what's the ultimate secret? We've traveled from simple on and off electrical signals to complex software. It all begins with electricity, which is either present or absent. This becomes A1 or A0, the bit. Billions of these bits are controlled by tiny switches called transistors. Transistors combine to form logic gates, making basic decisions like AND or. These gates are then connected to create memory cells, which can store a 0 or A1. The central processing unit, or CPU, is like a super-fast instruction follower. It constantly fetches, decodes, and executes simple steps. Humans write complex software in easy-to-understand programming languages. These languages are translated into the zeros and ones the CPU understands. All this amazing technology, from video games to complex calculations, ultimately breaks down into these billions of simple on or off choices. Your smartphone calculates numbers faster than every person on Earth counting together for 2 days straight. Just to show you this video, your phone is making over 100 million calculations every single second. So how can electricity think or remember things? Electricity itself doesn't think or remember like a person. Instead, its on or off states are meticulously arranged to follow instructions. The patterns of zeros and ones, guided by logic gates and memory, allow computers to perform incredible tasks. They don't have consciousness, but they can simulate complex processes by tirelessly executing billions of simple decisions every moment.